Gratian, master of Bologna. Your decretum is renowned, but on marriage you've got the sequence backwards, I've found. You say consent makes marriage, then consummation seals the deal. That's creating two stages when there's only one that's real. Consent alone, that's what makes a marriage valid and true. Matthew 19, Genesis 2, become one through I do. The exchange of vows, the mutual consent of hearts, that's where sacramental marriage actually starts. Your marriage initiated versus marriage completed split, that's a legal fiction that doesn't really fit with the gospel's understanding or the church's ancient mind. Consummation is important, yes, but it's not what binds the couple sacramentally. That happened at consent. Your Bologna school position, brother, it's misspent. Lombard, please, the parish school is too idealistic here. You're ignoring Roman law and centuries of what's clear. In legal practice, marriage has two stages we must see. Dispensatio starts at copula, completes it fully. Joseph and Mary, perfect case that proves my point. They had consent, but pre-consummation could annul the joint. Matthew 1:19, Joseph could divorce her quietly before consummation happened. That's the key. If consent alone made marriage absolutely binding tight, then Joseph couldn't divorce, but scripture shows he might. Your one-stage model doesn't handle cases that we see where couples consent, but something happens before consummation's key. The tradition's clear from Augustine, from Roman law's foundation. Marriage isn't radum et consummatum without that consummation. To become one flesh, that's the fullness shown. To become one flesh, not by words alone. To become one flesh, in the red zone. Lombard, to become one flesh, consummation's the cornerstone. From Bologna's legal halls I compile church law, hold a concordia discordantium canonum. That's my role, harmonizing contradictions in the canons through the years. Marriage law needs clarity that removes all the fears of invalidity and questions that could tear couples apart. Consent initiates, yes, that's the starting part, but Genesis 2:24 couldn't be more plain and clear. One flesh through consummation, that's what completes it here. You can't have radum without consummatum falling through. That's why non-consummated marriages can be dissolved. It's true by solemn religious profession or papal dispensation. Your consent only model can't explain that situation. The Pauline privilege, the Petrine, all these legal cases show marriage has two elements that both must fully flow. Hold up, Gratian, you're confusing indissolubility with validity itself. That's not the same. You see, a marriage can be valid but not absolutely sealed against every form of dissolution that could be revealed. Mary and Joseph's case, that's betrothal, not marriage. True, the distinction there is different from the point I'm making to you. Consummates the marriage, that's the sacramental sign, not a physical act but a spiritual binding line. Ephesians 5 compares marriage to Christ and the church's bond that's based on covenant love, not physical acts. Beyond the spiritual union that consent establishes first, your focus on the flesh, that's getting it reversed. 1 Corinthians 7, Paul speaks of marriage debt, but the marriage exists before that obligation's met. Consent of hearts, that's a sacramental form. Consent of heart, where the covenant is born. Consent of heart, not the physical norm. Gratian, consent of hearts loves the binding storm. Your consent only doctrine sounds romantic and refined, but it doesn't match the legal realities we find. When marriage is unconsummated, can be set aside by church authority. How do you reconcile that divide? If consent alone makes marriage absolutely binding, sure, then nothing should dissolve it, but we know there's a cure for marriages that haven't reached their proper completion through solemn vows or papal intervention. Your parish school philosophy is too abstract and high. It doesn't work in canon law when couples testify. Gratian, brother, legal thinking has its proper place, but sacramental theology looks at a different space. Marriage is a sacred sign of Christ's eternal love, not primarily a contract governed from above by Roman legal categories of property. Indeed, it's a covenant of persons, mutual self-give seed. Consummates marriage because persons give themselves entire, not because their bodies consummate physical desire. The consummation matters, yes, it's the natural expression of the consent already given in that sacred session. But don't reverse the order, don't make flesh the foundation of what's essentially a spiritual consecration.